Uh-huh. Hello, everyone, and welcome to AI at Work, whether you're joining us live or you're watching the recording. My name is Sara Golden, and I am an instructional designer and performance improvement consultant. And we are joined by Pusch, Dr. Rob Pusch today. And we're going to be talking about some AI tools. So he is a faculty in the instructional design program at Syracuse University. And super excited to have you here, Rob. Thank you for joining us today.
Sure. Thanks, Sarah.
So,
Uh-oh.
there's a lot that's happening in the AI space right now. So, anybody want to share why they joined our session tonight? Hi, Tom. Good to see you again.
Hello there.
Anybody have anything they're specifically interested in tonight? Okay.
I'm just
All
looking to
right.
hear how people are using it.
Great.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Tom, have you been using it more and more?
Kind of, but don't forget, I nowadays I am an instructional designer, worked in corporate training for 100 years or something like that. And over the past 15 years, I've transitioned to working in law enforcement as a criminal investigator.
Right,
Okay.
right.
I'm doing
Yeah.
it as a volunteer. It's giving back to the city. The way I'm using AI is to research certain things. I've used it to do I just asked the question of how do we find a critical missing person? That's what I'm using. But then people are asking me questions. They're giving me evidence, and I've got to figure out if the evidence is real or created by AI.
Oh, nice.
Mm.
Interesting. Yeah. Good.
Very
Yeah.
interesting. Very
Interesting.
interesting. Yeah, we might have to, if we have time at the end, I've got questions for you, Tom. All right. So, Rob, as a
Sure.
university professor and somebody who has both used AI and encourages students to use AI ethically and responsibly, what are you seeing across higher education? How are students using AI right now? And how are instructors responding? I know when I've pulled some at my local university, there was a wide range of answers, responses, and kind of feelings on the matter.
Yeah, I would say the same thing is here, right? So there's a wide range of responses in both, I think, the perception of how students are using it and the ways in which they actually are using it. So I probably should preface this first that my students are all graduate students. So in that
Mhm.
sense, I have probably I'm sure they use it in very different ways than many undergraduate students do. So I would say there's a couple of perceptions of how they use it. So would say a lot of faculty, they have the concerns that students are going to use it to cheat. They're going to use it to essentially do the work for them, which is, I think, a concern, right? There is
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of the data has shown that really there's always going to be students that cheat.
Yes.
And this is just going to be another way for them to cheat, is all there is to it.
Right.
So I can give you an example. Pre-AI, a colleague of mine who taught in the writing program here and had an assignment, and this was back, I mean, you could do Google stuff, and a student turned in a paper, and my friend was like, this does not look like, just took copied a paragraph out, put it into Google, and
Uh-huh.
found the source.
Right.
So that's, now back then, right, it was easy to find that kind of stuff. And I've had one student who did that. I'm like, this does not look like that student's writing. And I could found
Right.
it and they just literally copy paste. I think AI, the dilemma is, and this is what I think people are more concerned about, is that it writes it, but it's not it's not like copying something directly from some article, right?
Right.
So, however, most faculty will say that, I shouldn't say most. I think some are then concerned about how do I write assignments to combat this.
Mhm.
But I think that's just one thing, right? So again, there's
Right.
always going to be students to cheat. I do know at Syracuse University, you cannot, I believe you can't, it's very difficult to prove that a student used AI. So unless they
Mhm.
admit to it, it's really hard to
Mhm.
bring an academic integrity
Mhm.
violation or something like
Right.
that.
Right.
But I would say the ways in which students are using it, they're using it in many different ways. I know a lot of my students use it for brainstorming. A lot of
Yes.
them use it for image generation.
Yes.
I've had a lot of students, and this isn't even just mine, but also a lot of undergrads use it they'll take the assignment prompt. They can't figure out what the heck the faculty member wants.
Mhm.
So they'll put it into AI and say, hey, can you help me make sense of this? And so it
Mhm.
gives them some kind of feedback on what the assignment prompt is, that kind of thing.
Right.
And I actually have students who took my rubric last semester. They took the rubric for an assignment as well as the assignment, and they would actually upload what they generated and have it compare it to the rubric and give them feedback based on the rubric.
Yes.
Which is, yeah. And I think that's that's a really creative way to do that, right? So to get feedback on things, help you improve things. So I find a lot of my students really are using it in that way versus to generate content.
Right. It's a great sanity check because I know as a full-time, when I was full-time in school and full-time working, by the time you get to the end of an assignment and, in a doctoral program or a graduate program, your assignment might be 20 pages plus.
Right.
And sometimes you're not sure whether you're coming or going. It's a great sanity check to be like, okay, here's my rubric. Here's the assignment I completed. Did I black out between paragraphs and totally, is there anything crazy in here? Because you start to just kind of get turned around on yourself,
Oh,
So,
absolutely. It'll give you the flow of the paper. Yeah, right. It will sort of give you feedback on where things went well or where they didn't, which I think is really helpful for students as well.
Right. Yeah.
And then I have a lot of international students who use it just to translate, frankly.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and because you think about how frustrating it is. Most of my time was spent in middle school and above, but I spent 1 year in elementary school, and I know I taught reading intervention. I did small group reading instruction, and I realized most of the kids in my reading groups were bilingual. So that made me wonder. And some of them, I was able to test them in their language, and they scored off the charts. And I think about if you're a graduate student and you're bilingual, how much work, how much effort that takes. And then to sound not the way you want to sound, think about how they would write if it was their primary language. And then I see that wanting some more of that dignity back where people aren't poking fun at it or, something like that. Yeah, I have a lot of sympathy for that. So what have you done to kind of AI proof your assignments?
Well, I wouldn't say I AI proof it because I actually encourage my students to use it. And again, remember, this is graduate levels courses. So I would say the first thing, and I suggest this to faculty in general, is take your assignment prompt and put it into AI and see what it generates. And for my students, if they were to use AI to, first of all, most of them are context based. So it's kind of hard to they have to pick a context and write something around a context. So it's kind of hard to make that up. Right. And so, but I remember when AI was first coming out, a colleague of mine, and we co-wrote final exam for a course that he taught for a number of years. And then I started teaching it. Now somebody else is teaching it. And so we were like, my gosh, how could they do on this final exam? It's a take-home final if they use AI. So we put that into AI and it did a crappy job, frankly. So I think part of it is running your prompts, your assignments through AI to see what happens. And then you can get a good sense of what students what AI might generate for the assignments. So I would say that's the first step to do, see what happens. Then what I also do, what I do with my assignments is I have a policy which allows them to use AI. And I do make it really clear. I have some are very assignment specific. So I'll say on an assignment, you can't use AI for this assignment. And here's why you cannot do that, right? Because it kind of defeats the purpose of the assignment if you're using AI. Or I'll say, I've had one assignment where I said, okay, it was a small thought piece. I want you to do this without AI first.
Okay.
See what you come up with, do it with AI, and then compare and contrast the two.
Right.
So, and that's to give
cool.
them a sense, to give them a sense of what AI could do and what it can't do, or what they might do better than AI and vice versa. So I do that. And then I actually use AI to help me rewrite my assignments because sometimes they're not clear. And so if I put the prompt in there and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Here's what I have. This is what my goal is of the assignment. Can you rewrite it for clarity? Since I know that students sometimes have a hard time deciphering assignments that seem obvious to me. So
it's hard when you're writing instructions. I've always found this. You know what you mean.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I
it's
know what the
totally
end goal of
clear.
the course is, right? I know the
Right.
content really well, right? So for me, it's obvious. Yeah, exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And two, I feel like it helps those of us with anxiety because we'll start, I know sometimes on assignments, I'll second guess myself, make it way more complicated than it needs to be. And it's a good way to be kind of brought back down to earth and be like, all right,
Right.
you're making this harder than it needs to be. So that's funny. What would you say to people who are teaching like undergrad and below? Where do you see the opportunity for AI use in those areas?
So there's a couple things. I think one is like what I was doing, giving students the opportunity to compare the use of AI versus not.
Mhm.
Because the reality is AI is here, right? So in the field of instructional design, it is here. People that have to know it. So I think part of it is, and so I'll give you an example. So my summer class, I get a lot of faculty from other schools and colleges that take it because it's motivation in teaching and design instructional in
Mm,
design of instruction, right? So I had one faculty member from the Newhouse School, which is the journalism school,
okay.
who was very, and so she's like, I'm really resistant to the idea of AI in my courses because this is a journalism school, right? I'm teaching them the intro to journalism course. And part of that is about the process of writing. So
Hmm.
I can see where there's some points where it's not okay, perhaps, to use it. But part of it
Right.
is helping students understand the value in not using AI for something.
Hmm.
And that may be where I said, and I suggested her, I said, well, you might want to do what I did was have them generate it without AI first, then,
Hmm.
something short and then something with AI so they can see the value in doing the process of writing.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so I think part of it is that concern of the process of writing is, I mean, there's something about that, right? You generate
Right.
more thoughts, you refine your ideas by
Right.
writing, those kinds of things. So I think part of it is having to explain to students. That's like saying like mine. I give them assignments where I say don't use AI, but I also explain why they should not
Right.
use AI.
Right. Right.
But I then say, but you should use it in some form. And there's lots of ways that they can do that.
Hmm.
So one of them or they can use it for the design of the courses. But one thing I say is that for us, we use Blackboard for our LMS, our learning
Okay.
management system. And Blackboard has some really simple built-in AI conversation bots you can create.
Okay.
So you can create a lot of things that are sort of self-instructional pieces for students.
Okay.
Or in my courses, I use them as a way to create discussion.
Okay.
And later on, I can show you sort of what one of those looks like.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. We definitely want to see that. We definitely want to see
yeah.
that. Do you feel like there's room for AI providing like learning instruction? I think, one of the things you talked about is like the process of writing. And I feel like that is one of those things that is so challenging to teach, right? It's very time consuming to grade, hard to give timely, meaningful feedback. And I feel like a lot of students leave high school really struggling with that writing process.
Mhm.
So they know how to do the research, they know how to gather their sources, and they know how to get their thoughts on paper. But I feel like oftentimes it's very rough,
Yep.
and I have my oldest writing was always something he struggled with, and it wasn't the content so much as the flow. And I feel like AI came on the scene at a very pivotal moment when he was starting college, and he used it to help him learn how a
Right.
paper should flow.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I think this is where the other way I encourage my students to use it is a brainstorming tool.
Hmm.
So I'm like, and in my AI policy, I talk about that where it's a great way to get feedback. Again, that's that idea of putting in the rubric and getting feedback for it,
Right.
but also brainstorming ideas, generating some kind of outline. Because I think, back in the day, you might create in class activities where you have students sit around in a circle and do that is one way to do
Hmm.
it. But sometimes students are not really comfortable doing that, I found, which
Right.
is kind of interesting, right? They're particularly international students they do better at taking time to walk away and think outside of the
Hmm.
space of the classroom to
Hmm.
respond.
Yeah.
But there's also those students who just are not comfortable speaking in class, right?
Right. Right. Right.
So it gives them another venue to do that kind of thinking with
Right.
AI.
Right. Right. Well, and I feel like it's so, like peer reviewing each other's papers it's gotten to the point where nobody wants to criticize anyone else. And
Yes.
so, in trying to anonymize it and just, it's really hard to get students to give each other meaningful feedback. I feel like it gets probably a little bit easier as a grad student, but I know even then it's tricky.
Even then, I do have my students do these sort of project presentations, as the semester goes on, you talk about where you're at right now and get feedback. And they may get really sort of, well, gee, I see you kind of left this piece out, but they're not willing to say, but I don't think you did that well. So they're willing to talk about things that might have gotten left out of a paper, but not give really good, meaningful feedback on things they could adjust. Which is always fascinating to me when students say, oh, you did a really great job. And then that's all they talk about, the great, you did great flow, great structure, you did that, but they are unwilling. Yeah. So I think that's always, I see that even with grad students.
Okay.
Now, maybe because mine are like, these are intro, the first year of our program, maybe that's why that part of it is. I hope certainly as a doctoral student, people get much better at it than master's students, I think. So, yeah.
I felt like it was difficult. We had a number of assignments, like 2 or 3 assignments, I think, where we had to kind of peer review each other. And what I ended up doing with AI was I would write up my feedback and then I would be like, okay, AI, make sure this is not rude.
Right. Yes. I know people that say they do that. Like one colleague of mine says, I know I'm always really snarky. So I put it into AI and have it rewrite it for me, so I'm not so snarky. So, and
like
I must,
check.
Yes, exactly, a tone check. Yeah. And maybe that's that's another way to do it, is have it do a tone check. Yeah.
Oh gosh, it's so hard, especially, I feel like with more and more online asynchronous learning, you may not have those built relationships with students. So you're trying to be careful because you don't know how what you say is going to be perceived, just from the written word. So I know you've had a lot of conversations with your students on how and why they use AI. What kinds of reasons are they giving you? Like, what are they telling you about their experience with AI?
So they use it in ways, I mean, it's interesting because I have sort of mixed kind of feedback. And I think part of it depends on the location the students come from. So the students who are in the field, so they're in instructional design, they love it, right? So they love the brainstorming aspect for their assignments. So for example, one student this past summer, for their assignment, remember, it's motivation and teaching and learning, teaching and instruction. And they have to they're supposed to develop at least a blueprint for some product, but she actually developed the GPT. So this is somebody who taught high school. I think they were high school kids. She was from the Caribbean, and it was, she taught an art. It was kind of like they had to do an analysis of artwork.
Okay.
And so she actually wrote the GPT, which would allow students to say, would give them a painting, and then they would put in their analysis of the painting, and it would provide them feedback. And she said the one value of that GPT is this is art that they wouldn't necessarily be able to see themselves, right? They can't go to the Louvre and look at the artwork there, and get a nice visual of it there. So they could give them, they could ask for a specific artist, or they could say, but it would give them prompts on like, I'm not an art person, so I can't quite recall the examples, but like, what's the form, that kind of stuff, Yeah. It was all analysis of art, all that language that was in there, but it would give them good feedback on it as well. So a student group this semester, they were developing a course for high school students on time management skills. And they actually wrote a little chat bot, which helped students think about their time management. Like, oh, you could, and I actually went in and played around with it, of course, and where you could put in, say, hey, I've got a paper coming up, and it would say, well, when's the paper due? And it would give an end date, and it would talk you through using this Eisenhower matrix of making decisions, which exactly. Yeah.
The Eisenhower matrix.
I had not heard of it before. Not one thing. I've used many other things, but not that one. But it walked them through. So they actually are using it as assignment products, both in my course and in other courses, because they love to share the ones they've made in other courses as well. So they're using it to actually generate products that they could use in learning situations.
Very nice.
And they love doing that. They love generating stuff with AI. whether it's little
Oh,
videos or something like that. They just love doing that. And actually, there are faculty who do similar kinds of things to generate content for their courses,
okay.
as well as I know faculty who use it where you can upload all the readings and material for a particular
Mm,
unit. You can say,
hmm.
and students can go in and create a little self-check quiz kind of thing. So they use it to
Okay.
generate those self-check quizzes as well.
Nice. Okay. Good
So
deal.
yeah.
And for anybody who is not familiar with the Eisenhower matrix, it's a decision matrix and it's got four
Yes.
quadrants. And the urgent and important, that's kind of what you're supposed to tackle first. And then you've got not urgent, but important. Then you
Yep.
have urgent and not important. And they tell you to delegate that. And then the
Delegate.
not
Yes.
urgent, not important, just delete it. So it's either do, decide, delegate, or delete. So yeah.
My comment was, I wonder what high school students would delegate that
All of the
matrix.
things you don't want them to.
Exactly. I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Delegation is hard though. I feel like that's such a big challenge to know what to delegate and when. So, oh gosh, I had a thought that I want to share. Anybody want to share anything or jump in with comments or questions? We do love participation, so don't be shy to
I
come
will.
off. Okay.
Certainly.
So let me give you an example. When I was a professor, I would teach APA, American Psychological
Mm-hmm.
Association writing style in my experimental methods course. And I used to spend 2 days going over the logic behind the APA style and what the rules
Mm.
kind of work like and how they fit into a paper and all that. But I have terrible handwriting. So when I graded people's papers, I created a scoring sheet and I give them feedback with where they gained or lost points so they
Mm-hmm.
could see what they weren't doing so well.
Mhm.
I discovered one day one of my students said to me, well, why don't you share that scoring sheet before we do the assignment? And I said, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And their
Yeah.
quality of their papers doubled
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
did
Mhm.
that. So if I were doing it in the AI world, what I would do is I'd give them a score sheet or let them derive one with AI, but have them write something in class, give me a copy of it, and
Mm-hmm.
then go off and have the AI evaluate, just like you're talking about,
Yes. Yeah.
whether it conformed to APA style, and then come back in and talk about what they learned.
Right.
And so, so, so I think the concept that's kind of missing in a lot of instructional discussions is how do you redesign teaching to
Right.
leverage AI rather
Yes.
than worrying about are they cheating or not?
Right. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And that's exactly right. It is about how do you redesign teaching. And I think there is, and I think Vince actually mentioned this last Friday at the roundtable, the idea that you've got faculty who have been doing it the same way for a long time. And
Mhm.
so it's hard to reimagine how you would do that,
Mhm.
right? But that's it. So, and part of the thing is like, think about APA style, right? No one has to, if you talk about just referencing things, right? AI can check that for you. So part of it is how well do you have to know that if it can run the check? I still think you need to know how to do it right, right? And
You
understand
do,
it. So
because I feel like that's the little details that AI still will kind of get wrong, you
they
know?
can still get it wrong, right? So you have to be
Yeah,
able to double check it.
you do.
So,
The
and
other thing, I'm sorry, Rob, you go ahead.
no, actually, it's interesting because what I did, and I can demo this a little bit later, I have a lot of I do a lot of little tiny things for my stuff. So one thing is it was had my one course I teach this semester, ID 631, which is instructional design and development one, first semester. And there's an assignment. And so I actually uploaded all the assignment stuff like the rubric, the assignment descriptions, a whole bunch of stuff from the course. And it is a little thing where they can go in and ask questions about the assignment and even upload what they've done so far to compare it. It compares it to the assignment prompt and to the rubric as well. But it is that kind of thing where they have at least done something. And usually I have them actually do stuff in class and show it in class, but they then can again check it against the documents there as well. So
Rob, on that vein, I know do you have a favorite AI enhanced assignment that you've seen at work especially well that you would want to share with the group?
I will show you I have a couple of different things. I'll show you the one
Okay.
that the students loved the most.
Okay.
Okay. So, because I use it in a lot of ways, I use it to help me write assignment prompts, but also let me see, I have my browser that I've loaded up with things. I can't find it, like any of my old examples, like ones when I was demoing it. But I'll show you you have to set me up to share there.
Oh,
Yep. Nope, no problem.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead.
I've mentioned this in past meetings, probably.
All right.
So,
You're ready to go, Rob. Sorry about that.
No problem. So let me blow this up a little bit. So this actually is a little role play. So this is my class, which is the name is called Analysis of Human Performance Technology Decisions, which is essentially front-end analysis or human performance. So the class used to be taught in 5 Saturdays. So they now that I'm full-time faculty, instead of teaching as adjunct, it's been switched to once a week, right? So the typical time where you meet at the School of Ed, higher grad student courses meet once a week for 3-hour slots. Okay. So in the all-day session, I would do this role play where they had a scenario and it was a K-12 kind of scenario, and I had some students be the needs assessment team, some be school administrators, some were teachers, some school board members, and they had to come in. It was like teachers aren't using technology as they should kind of thing. So they had to do a needs assessment where they did basically kind of focus groups and collect data from the other groups. And there was a lot of setup to it ahead of time. And I had these huge set of instructions for each group. So, and it took a long time. Now, this is, of course, I teach in person, but I also teach 2 online sections.
Okay.
So they don't have the opportunity to do this long role play activity. And I tried to do it via discussion board kind of thing, but it didn't work well. So I created this little GPT, which does this. So you can see here, it says, I'm the mentor, Rob, right? I'm going to guide you through the needs assessment role play. And it says, ask you like, tell me a little bit about your experience level. And is there a context you work in? And so I can say, I am new to this. I work in higher ed. Let's see how it works. I haven't used this since last spring. Okay. And so sometimes with the AI changes. So it's like, great. So it sends, would you like to choose a scenario or like me to pick one for you? So I can say, a scenario faculty.
Yeah, if anybody builds a lot of chat GPTs, I'm always like, oh no, I have to update it because it'll stay on the version it was when you built it. And you have to, it usually remembers though, but if you really want to be sure, you can go in and change that.
Change it.
Yeah.
So what this role play does is it gives you a scenario. It says, right, there's a faculty of mid-sized university. They aren't openly defiant, but they're not using AI tools made available through the new campus-wide initiative, right? And then it gives you, so you can either have loud opposition. You want why the adoption. So you want to know why the adoption is failing, and it gives you either a loud opposition or the pilot that went nowhere. And so you can choose. So you can choose as a scenario. And so let's say I'm going to try scenario C, and then it makes it up. So what it does is it says, okay, you're going to begin the role play, and it walks you through interviewing people in the situation, right? So you can say, you've been hired to conduct this needs assessment. You've been scheduled one-on-one meeting with Dr. Marissa Clark. And so you're sitting in her office, bookshelves lined with books, right? Gives you a little bit of setup, right? And it says, thanks for coming. I heard about the pilot, of course. What is it you're hoping to learn from me, right? So you can ask questions and get feedback, responses from the people. And so you can say, I haven't gone back and read the entire scenario. So
I love this though, because, this is for those of you who may not have attended. We had somebody, I guess, 4 months ago come on and show us software that allowed a sales team to do like role play. And then it would give them feedback on their on their performance,
Performance,
and
yeah.
and this is really awesome,
So
Rob.
you
I
go.
haven't made anything like this. This is
Oh
very
yeah,
cool.
I can send you the link to this. Yeah, so it
Okay.
is one of the things where you can go through. You can ask questions, right? And so the people will tell you why, and so you can go through and ask a few questions to a person. It'll say, "Hey, do you want to talk to somebody else?" And so you can say, "I want to talk to somebody," and you can tell, "I want to talk to a faculty who's using it." Or I want to talk to a faculty who's not using it, kind of thing. So you can pick the people you want to talk to. And then in the end, you can say, hey, what do you think should be happening in the situation? Or why do you think, what were the causes, kind of thing, right? So it sort of walks you through that data collection through interviews, and then you have to make some decisions about what went wrong, kind of thing. And so the students loved this. And a lot of them, what they did, so in my online courses, one cohort are people from the military, and the other cohort, the other group, because they're actually a cohort specifically at the Sergeant Major's Academy, they're all in one section. And the other group are people who are typically instructional design professionals who they're looking for the credential, right?
Okay.
So they said, like, I know people said, I actually took a situation at my work and said, here's the scenario, right? They made up their own scenario and put it in there. And they said, and I know a couple people said it was eerily realistic.
Oh, I'm freaking out because this is literally what I collected data on. And I'm like, did we interview the same person? Because this is, wow, verbatim almost. It's,
Yeah. So they said it was so realistic. And so they loved doing it. And they said it was great to go back again and do it over again in a different scenario. They like to be able to practice. They said it was really helpful just in terms of practicing on how to ask questions in these kind of situations and think carefully about the questions you're asking and stuff like that. So they love this as an activity. And again, I said they did it over and over and over again because they found it so helpful and so much fun to do. And you can tell it, like I've done other things where I've said, hey, can you give me some data, and it will actually make up some numbers for you to look at and stuff like that. So it'll give you a lot of information to help you make decisions around what's going on in this situation.
Well, it's kind of like, anybody remember those Choose Your Own Adventure books?
That's kind of what it's like. Yes.
Right. Yeah. And was I know I wasn't the only one that went and like tried every version.
Oh, of course.
To get, I wanted to know all the different options. So that's cool. I would definitely be somebody that would come back and do this a few times. Very neat.
Yeah. So that was a fun one, I think. And this one was, of course, more complicated to put together. So,
how long did this, how intensive was this process of building this, would you say?
Well, I think now it would probably be a lot easier to build than it was when I built it, because now AI will help you build it, right?
Right. But it asks questions, 5, especially
exactly.
If it does the thinking, it'll ask you a lot of questions, follow-up questions. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, but when I did this a year, yep, sure. Kathleen?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, this is wonderful. It's dynamic, it's engaging, it's helping people. And it makes it easy for people to practice, right? And it gives them feedback, right? So, that's really a gold thing, when you're teaching, right? But what's also interesting to me is, like, if you were to teach probably your more advanced students how to build this kind of thing, because I could see this as the kind of product that an instructional designer might want to create for various business scenarios, right? I mean, so you got another course to build there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you could do a course on how to build these kind of things. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's great. Yeah.
I was commenting to Rob that this is the kind of thing that universities could orchestrate to help out of sync with AI faculty, especially to have some tools that they could start playing with for their courses or their departments or what have you. And that's how you could spread it through a university very effectively.
Yeah. So that was obviously a complicated one. So what they also have, so for example, I mentioned at SU, we use Blackboard. And so Blackboard now has a bunch of little built-in tools. You can't develop anything as complicated as this role play. You can develop conversations. So I did that for my summer class because I wanted to try out the options in Blackboard. And let me show you it. Let me log in here again. Logged me out. So, and I have a sandbox so I can show you what exactly that looks like. So this is the right one.
I'm interested to see how it is because I feel like every LMS now promises, AI tools or AI enabled
Yes.
AI chatbots.
Yeah. So, and I had to try it because, I built the GPT and it worked really well. So I was like, let me see what I can do in Blackboard. So first of all, I'll tell you that the one thing I use AI for a lot is image generation, like all these little graphics here, right? All generated with AI. So I love using it for that, right? The other thing I used it for was this is an fully online course in the summer. This is my summer one. I used it for prompt generation. So for discussion board prompt generation, that's not the good one. That was where they're using the bot. I think this is the one. Yeah. So here I used AI to generate. I wanted them to compare student prototypes and saying, hey, this one is looking at attribution theory and expectancy value, et cetera. So I had AI generate two. I said, I want students who are in the same chemistry class, same generals, scores on an exam kind of thing. Make a non-traditional student who's coming back after working for a bit, and then an international student who's a high achiever. So I gave it sort of a general sense of what I wanted the two student types to be like, and then had it write the little description of them because it would take me a long time to figure that out and spend time thinking about it. But you could see it did a pretty good job, right? A non-traditional student, 28-year-old single parent returning as working as a medical assistant, et cetera, versus the other one is a first-year international student from a highly competitive educational system. So it gave me two students who both had the same scores at this point, doing, so they're in the same class. And then they had to do this analysis of this and think about the what strategies they might incorporate. So that's one way I use AI. And I always tell people, use it to write your discussion board prompts. It does a much better job than I do.
Right.
But in this, I did use in this course two.
And I love what you did there because it was able to accurately capture what I feel like I've seen and heard from students. And so you get people that maybe, whether for geographical reasons or socioeconomic reasons or life reasons, maybe they haven't been exposed to as much diversity. And it's so important as an instructional designer, who is my audience?
Right.
Who is my audience? What kinds of things do I need to keep in mind when I'm designing courses? Because sometimes it's easy as humans to look at it through our lens and not through a more diverse lens with students and different needs that they have. That was really, I like that prompt. It was really good.
Yeah. So this is one of the little bots you can build inside Blackboard. And I'll show you in a minute how you do that. So really, like I said, it's really not very complicated. I came up with, you're an instructional designer tasked with working with the faculty on course design. Having had that experience in the past myself, I've done that a lot. You've been assigned to work with Dr. X on their course. Your current goal is to develop 3 to 5 instructional strategies that you can incorporate into courses focused on goal setting and promoting learner self-efficacy. You've asked to meet with Dr. Smith, a faculty member who is an expert in the area of motivation in teaching and learning, and you will need to explain the course content to Dr. Smith, right? What 5 strategies will you recommend to Dr. X? So you can have a short descript prompt saying, here's the general scenario, and then you can give Dr. Smith, who you're going to consult with, you talk about what's their personality, that kind of thing, right? So they're they professor instructional design, the supportive, well-versed in motivation, et cetera, et cetera.
Does it have a limit, in terms of the AI persona? Does it have a character limit or how many things you can, how complicated can you get?
So I don't believe there is. Let me see if I can. So this is what you get, right?
Is this the paid version, Rob, or is it the free?
This is Blackboard's paid. I mean, this is our institutional version,
this is Blackboard's. Right? Okay.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So you choose whether to role play. I chose that. And then you have, this is where you can just put in. So this gives you the thing of here's the scenario, and it gives you some examples you can use, right? So you don't have that open up in a new window. Yeah. So I haven't seen a word limit yet, but I found that it didn't really, I don't think you can get it to be too much longer than that, right?
Okay.
And then your persona is about this, but I've never bumped up against it. You can also change the complexity of responses. Like, does Dr. Smith give more verbose answers versus lower complexity, that kind of thing? So, and then you can make it worth some amount of points. But
I love that you can adjust that though, because I feel like as someone who's used a lot of AI tools, that was one of my frustrations with Claude, is Claude was so verbose.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
And I'm like, I'm just not feeling that it, it kind of kept me from wanting to use it.
Right. Well, I say, don't give them the answers, right? If it's giving them the answers, it kind of defeats the purpose. So, So, and in this one, when you first put it together, you can go in and, preview it, and it doesn't give you a lot of space for them to write. So I'm responsive. I love how it tells you responses are generated by AI, therefore have bias, may have bias, and not be accurate. Please share your initial thoughts on topic, right? So you can come in and say like instructional designer working chemistry course.
I'm curious, as somebody who you're very innovative, forward thinking, and I don't know, maybe I feel like sometimes these kinds of programs sort of lend itself to that. Like I know at my university, the instructional design team is very like AI forward, very like, let's use it and play and have you or any other of the faculty that you work with, have any of you had good luck with helping warm up maybe somebody who's a lot more reluctant to sort of dip their toe into the AI waters?
Yeah. So this one, you can see, I just type a little bit and it gives me some feedback on here and ask a question. So it does a little limited kind of thing. So for this particular thing, the one nice thing about these little chat bots, these little bots here, is that you can create it here, AI conversation, is that if faculty are worried about trying to figure it out for themselves, you can actually have it. I don't know if I can do it here or where I do it. Oh, I do it here, right?
Oh, I love how it says view examples.
Yes, it gives you examples, but also you can have it auto-generate stuff.
Okay.
So it will go and look at, so you can select I could select all the stuff in unit 5 if I want.
Wow.
That's a great integration.
Yeah. So you can select, so you can select the stuff from unit 5, and then it will unable to generate conversation.
It knows it's being watched, Rob. That's how technology is.
Yeah. Well, it may
it knows
also
it's being watched.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you see, I wonder why. Yeah. No, maybe it will.
You feel like you're spending more time developing your course materials because it's all new, or is it speeding things up for you?
So I would say I have to actually type in something here. Conversation.
So you know what I discovered, Kathleen, that I end up doing, and I think it comes down to the type of personality you have and kind of your teaching philosophy, because what I realized is AI is really good at helping speed up your learning of a tool. So as I've gotten faster in different areas, I've been able to do more and varied things. So, I know one of the assignments we had to build out like a Canvas module. And because AI was able to help speed up parts of it, I, went and learned how to post stuff in Google Cloud, and went and built an interactive thing in 5 HTML that I had never used before, and learned to program this little scenario. And I wouldn't have had time in the past, but because AI made things a little bit faster and I could ask AI, hey, I'm stuck on this, do you have suggestions for me? Then I was able to do more in that time. So, but I think it's partially personality. Wouldn't you say, Rob?
Yeah, I think, for me, I would say, I was redesigning courses. When you're redesigning stuff, it's not like I can just do a course copy and tweak it a little bit. So in that sense, it's taking me more time now to update my course, but I think it's for the better. I think for developing new courses, so I did was working on developing a new course, and I think it sped the process up for that. Because there's a lot, because it's brand new, right? So I'm not having, it's not like I'm taking something and tweaking it and revising it. I'm starting from scratch. So it does, I think it's faster than when I'm starting from scratch than when I'm just revising something. Yeah. But
that's
I've also,
really interesting that you say that. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's also reinvigorated my teaching, I think.
Yeah.
Is what it gets down to. It's making it much more fun and interesting to do that. So, but anyway, if this had worked, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then it keeps the students more engaged and stuff like that. So this actually would generate a prompt similar to what I have here. I actually did try the auto generate thing this summer when I first put this together.
Okay.
And it kind of was like they were okay.
Yeah.
I think for me, I think what it could do, because I looked at it and thought, that's not what I want. But for somebody who's new to trying this, they could do that and then edit it. It's not like you're stuck with the one that it generates. Right. So it might help you generate stuff based on your content, and then you could edit it to be what you want it to be. So it can shortcut that, I think, for faculty. So, yeah. And so at SU, they have these periodics work. ITS puts together these periodic seminars where they demonstrate these things. And they did one on these AI conversations. And so they said, hey, would you come in and be the faculty who's implemented this and talk through this and what you've done and how you did it? And so I did. And they said that actually made a huge difference to have a faculty member come in and present what they've done and talk about the process, because they had a lot of faculty getting in touch with them then on how can I do this in my class. So I think part of it is just showing like that's an easy thing to do, really. It's really actually easy to generate. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you're so right about you can always go back and edit. I've had a paid GPT account for a long time. And so I can go back to some of my earlier prompts and I'm like, oh, egads. Yeah.
They're so bad. They're so bad.
Very simplistic. Exactly. But you have to start somewhere. You know, and I love, when people are able to share their prompts or share some of their custom chat GPTs, kind of give you an idea of what you're looking for. But I thought that was such a valid point in that it's faster in a new course than it is in a course that's already built. And that's true, I feel like, in instructional design as well, because, recently I've built some courses from scratch, didn't write them, but built them, and be able to build them with AI is so much faster. Recently, I had to go in and edit a course that someone else had built.
Oh, yeah.
And you're driving yourself crazy. And it makes it better with, some AI tools and some different shortcuts and things. But I remember thinking I'd rather just have somebody build the course.
I was going to say, I'd rather
document, exactly, and let me just build it in the system,
Yeah.
Because I think it actually would have been less time overall. So that's a good point. All right. Well, we have just been running along. Anybody have anything that they want to jump in and ask or have Rob show them more of?
I'm really grateful to Rob to share what's going on in a real world situation and the way he's rethinking it, because that's one of the things, we've kind of had this educational approach probably since the Middle Ages, right? With certain things implicitly understood that this is how you got people to learn. And, the ground under us has changed. And Rob is really thinking, where do I need them to not use it? Where do I need them to use it? Because it's like exercise, right? I can't have, something run on a treadmill for me and me get the benefit. It doesn't work like that, right? But there are things that keeping the data of how much you're running on your treadmill, that's all good, right? So, I was really interested to hear how he's rethinking it, and that has to happen on a pretty big scale.
Oh my gosh, Rob, you should show your students. Do you guys remember like those exercise bands, and they were supposed to exercise your muscles for you while you sat there?
There have been a lot of those. You remember like you'd see them on like old shows, like they have
crazy stuff. I feel like when you're using AI for purposes you shouldn't be, you're just sitting in the chair getting like vibrated.
Yeah. I remember watching some show. Didn't there used to be like in the 50s and 60s, there was a thing where you'd see people stand. That's those kind of things. Like something like that. I was never thinking like, really, did people actually think that would work? I don't know.
Right.
Rob, have you run into any papers? So here's an example. A lot of courses are lecture courses.
Right.
So have you run into a paper or a presentation that kind of says, here's how you take a lecture course and create it to an interactive course?
So I do know there's faculty here that, I mean, you can, I think so. Yeah. I mean, you could do that, right? So I haven't tried it
AI,
myself.
actually.
You could ask exactly. AI would tell you, but I do know people who actually use AI a lot. They'll upload all their course material to generate either, videos to go in their presentations and stuff like that, just stuff to make them a little more interesting. But you certainly could use it to write prompts that you would then, I don't know, I'm not a large lecture person, so I'm trying to imagine like, well, you could do polls that people can use like Mentimeter or something like that to respond to them and stuff. But I think this is the kind of thing where people also use it to develop sort of they're little, essentially kind of like little conversation bots to help students think about the course material. Mm-hmm. So you don't have the faculty member doing it, right? But it is the little bot. Similar to like I was talking about the one I did for my course for let's see if I have them up somewhere, for the project. Where is, here's my little quiz I did, which I thought I was practicing sort of like, how do you create a little quiz based on the course material? So I uploaded a bunch of readings into here. So I uploaded a ton of readings and said, I want a quiz. I think I uploaded the stuff from like the first 2 units, right? Which is sort of the intro to front-end analysis. And, come up with a little quiz that students could try on their own to sort of test themselves. And so I did this it's funny, it says down here, there's 18 questions, but for some reason it's 19. So it actually generates a quiz that they could do a self-check on. So, people who do that kind of thing where they develop these little self-check quizzes, but also, yeah, it really is. Yeah. So that's the quiz. I don't know what I did with I have
my ChatGPT trained. If it makes quiz questions, they're not supposed to be super obvious. Because I feel like when I first started using it, I'm like, oh, come on now. Like a 5-year-old would be like, I know the answer to that.
Exactly. Yes. Oh, I know it's in my projects, maybe. Where's my projects? This is in Claude. Here we go. So this was my 631 thing where I have like the rubric, then the project template and stuff like that, where they can come in and upload their project and then ask for examples. So I think this was one where I put it in here and it said, okay, here, and it sort of gives you an analysis of what you've turned in, as well as then some recommendations for changes and stuff like that.
I love that, rather than me filling in the template completely for you, which wouldn't help your learning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yes. Yeah. See, so it was kind of like, that you can generate, I could see in a large lecture class where you have projects they have to turn them in, although frankly, probably most people aren't doing long papers in large lecture classes. You could have it do this kind of thing and check them. So, and have students do a self-check on those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Rob. I appreciate you so much. This has been amazing. I enjoyed our pre-conversations, and I know we'll have a lot more conversation. I love to see someone else using like a variety of tools. It's so interesting to kind of see how different tools work for different scenarios. Any last questions before we let everyone go off into their evening? All right. Well, I am so grateful that you guys were able to join live. And for anybody watching the recording later, we're so glad to have you. And we will be back in February. I'm going to be having somebody who works at the district level for a K-12 environment in professional learning and development. She'll be coming and talking to the group both about how she uses AI in her workflow and how she's gotten teachers and literacy coaches and all kinds of different folks to kind of embrace it and help them out in their jobs. And then we're also going to have a session in January. So stay tuned. And that's going to be with Anthony Markovich. It will be AI related. We don't have our guests totally on lockdown. It's been a wild month, y'all. It's been a wild month, but I'm very excited about who we're asking. So stay tuned. Hopefully you guys will see something on the website shortly. So yeah, I hope to see you guys again. Have a great night, everyone.